Hello and welcome. I'm so excited to be back for another happy at home session. This has been going so well. I've been having the best time, and I'm so glad that you're joining me for today. We are going to take a whole bunch of the things that we've done this week, and we're going to bring them all together into one and have a lot of fun with that. So hopefully you'll enjoy. And we'll actually get kind of closer to making a real scrapbook page today. So that's always good too. Oh, thank you so much. I saw some of the thumbs up coming in, some of the love, some of the likes on the page, and I really appreciate that. It's just yeah, I really do appreciate that. So today we are going to be playing with a little bit of everything. So maybe we should kind of have a look at some of the stuff we've done. But even before that, I want to give you a sneak peek. If you don't know me, my name is Alice Bull. I run the membership group at scraphappy.org. If you would like to get onto my email, that is the best place to get a hold of me. I have an email going out later today, my Friday 5, and it is super fun. I've got something kind of special on there, something very close, near and dear to my heart, and I am happy to share that today. So there is your chance to go there. I see Debbie here, Christy here. They're saying good afternoon, everyone. I think we're ready to play, right? I think we are ready to play, and it is going to be fun. We have, I think this camera is ready to go. I think we are ready to go here. Oh yeah, it's working. I love it when it works. I love it when it all just works. So next week, I just want to give you a heads up on one of the things we're going to be doing next week. And we are going to play with a folio from Photoplay. So Photoplay makes these folios. This is the folio number 2. And this is the one that I'm going to play with next week. What these do, they are a kit that allows you, gives you all the pieces that you need to make a really cool interactive project. And there's a picture on the back here of a sample that they've made. It is so cute, so beautiful, and I'm like, yeah, I want to make one of those. But I think that if you haven't heard of this product before, you're going to be like, wow, those are cool. And I think if you have heard of the product before and you haven't actually put one together, you're going to be like, little intimidating. Just for example, this is the first part of the instructions. And then there's more. Like there's more in here. Let's take a peek here. And there's more. And there's some more. So there's a lot of steps, right? And I think that that can be a little overwhelming. But we'll go through and we'll talk about how, as I put this one together, and hopefully I'll be able to get the whole thing together on the session. I'm really hoping I can. As I put it together, we're going to talk about some of the things that we can actually use that are part of the folio that we can also use in our scrapbooking too. So that's a plan for next week. I can't remember. Let's just do it Monday. I know I can schedule it for Monday. So let's just do this Monday. We have a plan for Monday. We'll do this on Monday. It will be our folio day. And of course, we'll hang out, we'll chat. Hello, Sherry. She says she's finally catching it live. She's always catching it after the fact. Yeah, but that's the plan for Monday. I think that is going to be a lot of fun. There's just a lot of pieces inside there, right? So it's like, ooh. And I just want to show you it's not intimidating. They make it as simple as possible. The explanations they have are really good. And it's going to be great. So that is fun. This week we have played with so many cool things. So many cool things. I have a smattering of them here. Let me tell you, it has been fun. So yesterday we spent a lot of time with embossing powder, playing with embossing powder, doing resist techniques with embossing powder, trying them with alcohol markers, which wasn't a win. Don't do that. But at least now you know. And then also making white line embossed flowers, black line embossed flowers. And earlier this week, we did a session with Nuvo products with Amy, and we got to see like the Nuvo drops, the Nuvo mousses, the the puffy one, the one that you puff up. What was it called? Expanding mousse. Yeah, expanding mousse. We looked at the glacier paste. So that was really fun. We've also played a little bit this week with watercolor, and I think that watercolor is one of the things that I really enjoy bringing into my scrapbooking process because it's meant to be imprecise, right? Watercolor isn't about 100% control of where all the color goes. Um, if you want control, you do like alcohol markers and make that beautiful. I should have finished that. I didn't get that finished. I did lots of other stuff though, and you'll see in a sec. We did some watercolor with different types of watercoloring options this week as well. And this was a background paper. Now, is it going to catch the light? You can see a little bit of the glimmer and shine on it. It is so shiny. Let me see if I can get it on the other camera to shine because I think you're going to be like, oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay. So there. Now you can see. You see all that glitter and shine in it? Yeah. So pretty. I am like super in love with this because it's gorgeous. Okay. And what I would like to do today is kind of bring all of these elements together. Now, yesterday, I made this little flower. First, we kind of had started watercoloring with black embossing powder, which was lovely, which was beautiful. And then we also tried watercoloring with white embossing powder. I cut that one out. Look how lovely it is. Yes, there is Nuvo on it. We'll talk about that in a sec. And then we also did some resist, right? With the watercolor, with the resist. Isn't that pretty? I liked that so much, I had to make another one later. So happy. Oh, lovely. I used the Versamark on this one because I wanted, it's a little juicier than that other ink that I had tried using. So it worked a little bit better, but I'm going to show you how I'm going to fix this today. So that is part of it. We've talked about my favorite ink, the Gina K, because it doesn't bleed and mess up. So we've talked about that. Oh yes, Sherry says, I love the glacier paste. I know, it's magical. Ria's here's from the Netherlands. Welcome. Oh my gosh. So today I want to bring it all together to make a layout, right? I want to take some of these pieces. So let's talk about this glacier, or this Nuvo drops for a second. We're going to do a, let's see here. Haha, I did it. Okay, so here we have, you can see the little drops on top of the flower. I've got some that are in the lemon color, right in the center of the flower. And then kind of out to the edge, you can see a few little glossy spots of the pink. It's called Love Potion. And then down on the leaves, I've added just some little fine details. And it just adds that extra little something something to those flowers. And the rest of it was watercolored after I had used white embossing powder. Okay, well, I thought that was really pretty, but I thought to make a page, I likely wasn't going to just want one of those pretty flowers. So I made another one, and I made another one, and then I did some of these other flowers that have the other. And now you can see I'll be able to create a nice little cluster of flowers for a layout. Then I also have printed off a picture. It is not the world's greatest picture, but it's something I have. It's a picture of me holding one of my baby chicks that I hatched last week, so I'm pretty excited about that. So I have this baby chick picture with me with my big excited face on, and then so I have this, and of course our month right now is April, so you can kind of see this is like a layout kind of starting to come together, and I like this okay on the white background, but I'm kind of in love. So I really considered trying it with this. It just wasn't quite right. wasn't quite right. Lindsay says every time she goes to use her Nuvo drops, it's clogged and I have to unclog it. Any tips? I keep a pin handy. I haven't had my Nuvo drops clog up nearly as much as other things, but I keep a pin handy. I'll show you what I do. It's not on my Nuvo drops, but I keep this on my desk. This is liquid glass from Close to My Heart, and I actually have a piece of washi tape on it, and I just slide a little pin into that washi tape so that I have the pin always handy, and I store it upside down, which is why it's stored this way and not this way, right? So hopefully, I know it's not convenient when they're clogged. That sucks. And I would recommend for sure, if you're having issues with clogging, when you're squirting it onto your page, don't squirt it directly onto your page. Take your little Nuvo drop thing and squirt it off on a little scrap first. It is like the best thing you will do for yourself, because when you're clearing that clog and you're like thinking that it's good, it's all good, and then you squeeze it and then it goes and makes a big puddle on your desk and you're like, or on your project, right? It's way better on your project, or like to not have it on your project where you're like testing it, making sure you got that good flow happening. So note to self. Note to self. Okay, so these are the elements, and I'm like looking at this thinking it's pretty, it's really nice, right? But okay, then I mentioned yesterday I just got this new Vicki Boutin paper. It's from her Color Story collection, and it's breathtakingly beautiful. So this is the paper that I fell in love with. This is why I ordered this. I'm like, oh my gosh, all the colors, it's beautiful. But look at this side. So this side is so subtle, right? It's dark and it's subtle and it has all this color. And I considered like just doing this straight onto this paper because it would be perfect. It would be perfect, right? All those pieces on that black paper. Amazing. Sherry says that was a smart one because she's always looking for her pin. Lindsay says taping it to the bottle is ingenious. Yeah, like I'm just like, where did that pin go? And like the last thing you want to do in your scrapbook room is lose a pin, because you know where it's going to end up. Somewhere you don't want it. So anyways, back to this. I'm obsessed with this paper. I think it's so beautiful. But I think what I'd really like to do is try to recreate my own version of it. So let's play. That's what we're going to do today. We're going to use this as inspiration paper. I am not going to be able to create the same thing. Vicki Boutin's doing her thing. I can't do the Vicki Boutin. I can do the Alice. So I'm going to create an Alice paper inspired by this gorgeous paper from Vicki Boutin. Now, if you want to know what it's called, this is Inspired. It's literally called Inspired, and it is part of the Color Study collection. I keep calling it Color Story. I do, sorry. Color Study collection from Vicki Boutin. So beautiful, but it's called Inspired. And I'm going to use this as my inspiration. So I'm going to set that up here so I can kind of see it. It has a lot of subtle color in it, right? It's dark overall, but it has subtle color. One of the things it also has in the background is some type. You can see a little bit of type in there. And that gave me an idea of something to start with for this page that I want to make. It's not actually going to use typing because, like I said, it's going to be inspired by that. And at the end, we're going to see, you know, mine versus hers. And I don't think they're going to look the same. But I think when you look at it, you're going to be like, ooh. Vicki says, did you get her water paper? No, I don't have her water paper. I don't have that, but I am using the Prima 12x12 that I've been using for a long time that I really love, and I've worked with quite a bit, so I feel very comfy. I'm in my comfort zone when I'm working with this stuff. Okay, so I'm going to take these beautiful flowers and set them up somewhere so I don't wreck them. I'm also going to take this beautiful April, which I know is imperfect. You can't see all of the white very well. Like I said, my ink wasn't as juicy as it could have been, but we'll fix that later. And I'm going to take the picture, hurry up and get that out of the way before I ruin it. Now I've got my white paper here, and now we can play. Well, let me see if I can turn that just a little bit. Okay. Turn off Starlink. Turn off Starlink. Are we back? I'm so frustrated. Sorry, guys. It's trying to turn off the bad internet. Turn off the Starlink. It's like, disconnect the bad internet. Make it. Oh my gosh. Okay. Nothing to stop here. Okay. Still frozen. Back. Is it working? Okay. You are back. Oh, thank you. Okay. Thank you. I'm so sorry, guys. There's nothing to stop here. Okay. It sounds like it's going to work now. Sorry. That sucks. Okay, so we're back. I'll have to see what those recordings look like at the end. I have no idea what that's gonna do. Okay. So I have this chicken wire. This is a really old stamp. I can feel it feels a little gummy. It's from close to my heart. It's a million years old. I have used it a fair bit. Surprisingly. It is the Distressed Backgrounds Flare D1544. For anybody that knows close to my heart, that would be what you'd want to know about it. Okay, so we're going to do a little bit of this with some black ink before we get started with any kind of other color. Yeah, technology. I know. We're back in business. I'm glad to hear that. Okay, so I'm going to add a little bit of chicken wire up here. Of course, it didn't work perfectly. Let's see if I can get the center of that in there. Good. And we'll ink it up. I might have to get myself a new chicken wire. I'm gonna actually remove some of this ink and just soften the edges so I can put this into different places and give it some different looks to it. Right, because if I remove some of the ink, it's gonna feel a little less perfect. Less perfect is good. Yeah, that's technology. I'm gonna put some of this here. I'm gonna just mask off a little section. And I think I need a little piece over here. Let's see. A little up there, right? You seeing what I'm seeing? So we'll create just like a little bit of randomness in the background here. Ooh, I really like that one. That got like really imperfect and looks beautiful. So, let's see if I can add a little more down here. Cool. That way it's not so precise. Oh, I like that a lot better. So yeah, we're just kind of going for it because that's my way. I'm just kind of lining up the other ones and adding a little bit more. Okay, I think that looks good. The idea isn't to focus on it, it's going to become part of the background. Karen says, if it's gummy, it's time to toss it. I know, but I don't want to. I know. It's like, it's done its time. It's done its time. And I'm sure I can get another chicken wire stamp. I'm wondering if I don't actually have one already. I looked at my other chicken stamps and I'm like, it's got to be here somewhere. It's coming off the block. It's still good enough to keep. There we go. Right? If it's coming off the block. But yeah, these ones have definitely seen better days. Okay, so we've got some imperfect stamping which looks kind of perfect. And we're going to close the ink before I get my arm into it. And then we're going to start adding some color to this, right? We're going to add some color. Ooh, look at this. Potential for Alice's disasters laying all over this. Let's clean that up. Clean that up. I brought my water, so I've got my watercolor water here. I've got my favorite brushes that I use probably too often, but I like them, so they're good. I have my palette of colors. I'm just gonna set them off to the side here. Actually, I'm gonna go big screen on you so that you can see. I wish I could figure out how to do. Ha ha, look at me go. Figured it out. Got my little face in the corner. That way you can kind of see me. I feel like we can still chat. We can still hang and chat, right? So I've got my paper, and I think this can make it a little bit brighter. Okay, so we're going for inspiration, right? Inspiration. And that means I need a fair bit of dark in this background, but it's not just all dark. So we'll go in with some of my darker colors for sure. But I'm gonna kind of wet the palette because there is a fair bit of color on that background. And we're going to see the return of these markers because they were gorgeous, and I think that's gonna add a lot to the background too. So got all the pieces here. Ooh, Sherry says that Kaiser Craft has a nice chicken wire stamp. You guys are so helpful. Enabler alert, enabler alert. Let's flash it across the scene. What do I have? Do I have like an air raid siren? I think I need one of those. I've got a DJ horn or something. Is that ridiculous? Is it too loud? Probably too loud. I don't even know how to change those, but I think it's definitely warning, warning, enabler alert. I need that like permanently set up for me. Okay, so I'm gonna wet this whole background and just start giving it some color. And as you can see, because I used that ink, look how it's not bleeding everywhere. You can't do that with any old ink. That's why we love our Gina K. There are other ones too. Like Gina K isn't the only one. It's the one that I am the most familiar with, and it's the first one that did exactly what I promised it would do when I tried it. So, you know, she's made me a fan for life. Now she actually has, oh, and I forgot to do the thing that Karen told me to do, is to tape it down. It's not going to be taped down now. It's wet already. Okay. Getting lots of water onto the paper because I want it to be able to kind of bleed the colors all over. And I'm going to start with some quite dark color. I have my box lid. Oh, maybe did I hide it underneath? No, I didn't. I have my box lid somewhere so I could see what my colors are. Oh, apparently I've hid it. Okay, but this is my black anyways. And because I want to have a pretty strong black kind of base to this, I am going to start in by adding black right to the paper. Ooh. I wouldn't say I have done a lot of watercolor where I start going in with a color that is so deep and dark. Black? Have I even done that before? Don't know. Literally don't know if I've ever gone in and said, I'm going to make something with black. It's just not really my go-to happy place, I guess. So, is there a color that you tend to use? Sherry says, have you put gesso on the paper? No, I'm doing watercolor. Do you even use gesso with watercolor? Is that a thing? It's watercolor paper. I don't think you gesso watercolor paper, do you? Somebody feel free to correct me. Be like, of course you do, Alice. Why are you doing this all wrong? Stop showing us. I will not be offended. I will not be offended. but you can see I'm getting a lot of good color, but it's like fading into like smoky areas, right? Like it's like got that black, but it's also got some smoky areas. Okay, now this looks very just black and gray, which could be a little on the boring side. But now we're going to add more color. I'm going to just do a quick little swipe around my paper and pick up some of this extra color that's run off the edges, just so I don't end up blending all of my colors into black, because that could happen. There you go. Karen says no gesso, only if you don't want paint to go into the paper. And Orchard Girl says her go-to color is blue. I love the blues and I love the pinks. Those would tend to be my most go-to colors, is the blues and the pinks. And now you'll see I'm actually grabbing blues to kind of smoke the background, like make it a more like an inky starry sky effect. That's kind of what I'm thinking here, because I don't want to have it just dark, but I think by adding a little bit of this blue, it should be extra pretty. And I'm gonna add purple in the same way. Now, if I had my box lid, which I do somewhere, I literally kept it out. I probably put it somewhere right in front of me so I could refer to it, because I'm like, oh, I'm gonna want to see this. Unless I put it behind me. I didn't. That's hilarious. I'm gonna find it right after and I'll be like, oh, that's where it is. My paper, my book. Yeah, it's like totally missing in action. Okay. So I've got a purple in here anyways. This is a purple. And I'm gonna bring some of this in just to a few areas. I'll have a little bit more right into there. And of course, a little more water to bring this. Okay, so I don't think that this is going to be finished until I go back in with more blacks and stuff too, but I wanted to get enough of the fun colors in here and bring the fun colors with those black tones so that the black will kind of let it come through. That is so pretty. Well, thank you so much, Orchard Girl. Thank you so much. I love the mucking part, right? Like you can see, like this is definitely a case of mucking the colors in. And kind of seeing a little bit of where I can put them. Trying not to let too much of the black blend so I get a little bit more of the strength of the colors. And then after, I'm going to go back in with some more of the black. Ooh, you can see the color just like spreading right in there. I'm going to see if I can create a little bit more of that drama too. That is pretty. A little bit. Where can I put this? I don't want to overlap my colors too much. And in here. Gotta clean out some of that black. Okay, anything else? Oh, I do see a little bit of yellow. Maybe we'll go with a little more. mustardy yellow. Okay. So, does this look like Vicky's paper? Nope. Will it look like her paper? No. Can we see some of the inspiration? I think in a little bit we will. Okay, so that's good. I'm gonna let that sit for just a moment to let some of that color fade into it. But I think before I do that, I should put a little more water onto it, because I love the way the colors mix and spread just by having a little bit more water. Now, I've heard about a thing where you can do color mixing and stuff when you're using salt. So does anybody here know about the salt technique with watercolor? Danielle says, I have to admit, when you first started, I couldn't picture how this was gonna work, but this looks amazing. Well, thank you. I'm definitely I'm definitely having fun with it. Like, the worst case scenario, if it turns out super ugly, I can just be like, well, that was a massive fail, and we're gonna use this pretty Vicky Boon paper. Right? I have a backup plan. I have a backup plan. So all is well. Okay, so I'm not drinking my paint water. Okay, I just love the way the colors are kind of blending a little. I want to like encourage a little bit of that a little bit. Okay. So the next thing that I'd like this to do is be a little bit more dry. I don't know if I should try drying it or if I just want to go in with more black. I think I need to kind of set this a little bit before I can add more of the black, because I think that's a thing. Okay, so we're going to try to set this a little bit. I think you can put salt on it when it's wet, and the salt absorbs the color in that area, and then you brush the salt off when it dries. That's what Lindsay is saying. There's so much water on this paper. It's great. Or I just saw a technique where you spray adhesive once you put the salt on, and it makes the salt stick. I have seen some fun things with salt. Like it kind of makes the paint flow a little different. So Debbie says the salt absorbs some of the color, creating areas with a little less pigment. See, that would be pretty. I didn't bring salt here. Don't know what I was thinking. What am I doing? Mucking around or what? This is good, but you can see how it's drying so much lighter. Like, as the areas start to dry, you're starting to see the lightness. That's why we're gonna have to kind of bring more of the black back in. But I gotta get some of this color set so that the black doesn't completely lose the color. And is using your heat tool, cheating? Probably, but Karen's my expert. Karen Poity Broad. She says, use coarse salt for that technique. Leave it on until the paper is dry and then brush it off. I was trying to get some coarse salt in the fall, but it was like gone from all the canning people. Everyone that was canning with all their stuff from their garden, they had taken all of the coarse salt. It was totally gone. Okay, so we can see that this has dried a lot. And it's so light now. Like, we saw it and it was black, and now it's like super light. So we definitely need to bring some of that dark richness back to it, right? But even as we add the black, those undercolors are still gonna pop. Oh, Vicky says, good tips on all the salt technique. I know, I love it. I'm like, somebody will know this better than me, but I have seen it. So it's something fun that, I will potentially try sometime. Okay, so this is looking fun. Let's bring my colors back down. And one of the things that I think I'll do after I add the black back in is that's when I'm going to use a little bit of this to kind of daub some bright spots of color into it. So hopefully this will work. I think this all makes sense, but I guess we'll know once it actually works or doesn't. Okay, wish me luck. So watercoloring, if you don't want your colors to blend together, my understanding is that you kind of let them dry in between the layers. And then your layers will still peek through, but not be like super, super muddy and mixed up. That's my understanding. So we'll see. We'll see how this goes. And I'm excited. Like, either way, if I end up ruining it, it's not the end of the world. I watched this one painter. Oh my gosh. Okay. His name is Kalen. Oh, what is it? He's on Instagram and he does pour art, but he always spins his canvases. So if somebody knows his name, Kalen Schaub or something. Oh, I'm wishing I could think of what his name was. And he does like these cool pour art things. But sometimes, like, I think that he lets it go too long. I'm like, why don't you stop it right there? Because it's so beautiful. And then I just want him to stop, but he keeps going. And sometimes he covers up his whole canvas. And you're like, well, what was the point of that? Like, you lost all of your color. But, it's about getting to a point where, can you see the color kind of sneaking through? It's like peeking through now. I'm impressed with how well the stamp still shows through, says Danelle. Yeah, and it's like, these are kind of things that I'm like, I've seen something like this before, but, me, like, I don't necessarily know it. What's that? There was a little chunk on there. I think it was like some of that goopy stuff from the ends from the when you get it off of the packet. Okay, let's get some of this. Now, another thing I would have done on here is a little bit more of the resist, which I didn't do, but I think because I've got the other pieces that will have some resist, I think it's going to be okay. So are you seeing the colors peeking through, even through the black? That's kind of the goal, right? It's to have, we could have stopped earlier and it would have been beautiful, but I think that this is going to be lovely too. Okay. And then we can start looking at how to add a little bit more of the color with the other methods, right? Oh, I'm so excited by this. This is looking so nice. You can see the areas that I didn't put as much of the paint. Okay, this is going to be about good, I think. Okay, so that needs to dry. I'm going to set that up again. And we'll just clean off some of this mess from around here. But I think that we're going to have that inkiness with the color peeking through. And yeah, you can still see some of that chicken wire that I stamped in the beginning. And this one's kind of going for those layers of subtlety. So one thing that Vicky Boutin always says, if you don't like it, keep going. So thankfully, I've liked this pretty much the whole way. But, you know, it's kind of like there are no mistakes in scrapbooking, only opportunities to embellish, right? We've all heard that for years. And I think this is like a really good example of how that actually comes about, right? Okay, I'm not 100% sure if I want to do this while the black is still wet or not. So I think I'll try some while the black is wet, and then maybe I'll try some when it's a little more dry. So we'll see which one works better. But this is the Jane Davenport, and I'm still getting a little bit of color on my fingers from this. This is the one that I had washed up because it was super dirty. It's not so bad anymore. All right, now I'm gonna squeeze and I'm gonna try to get this to dropper onto here in a few spots. And we'll see what that kind of looks like. Okay, and I'm not sure if I want this to be wet or dry. If you have an idea. Vicky says, oh wow, I like the way the colors are peeking out. Be careful when painting over wet paint with watercolor. You can remove paint and also damage the paper. Yeah. So I think these are good because I like the fact that it's still wet and it's really helping to like bleed them out. They're not like super defined and small. Try to stand that up over here somewhere. But I'm going to add these other colors to it too because I think they're just too pretty. Okay, add some of that color. And this one is and then there's one final one. Okay, so we're gonna let that sit. You can kind of see those colors, like they have a little bit of shine to them, which was why I wanted to use these markers to add them with a little bit of that shiny color. And my shirt in the picture is a bright magenta-y pink. So I think that, you know, having those little bits of the pink pooling on here, so excited. I feel that this black area almost could be more black. Some of the black could still be a little more black and I'd be okay with that. Do I dare go in and like add a little more? I guess I dare. I guess I dare. Worst case scenario, half of this is gonna get covered up with embellishments, right? Like, so if there's an area that's like, that part didn't turn out so good, it's gonna get covered up by half of my layout. Dripping paint on should be good. It's the brushing you need to be careful with. See, this is so good. I love having this. Karen, maybe one day we should do like a little thing. If you want to chat with me about coming on and doing a joint project where we actually learn some real stuff, that would be fun. So hit me up after in our circle and send me a message if that's something you're interested in. Okay, so this I think is beautiful. It is not like Vicky Boutin's. It totally has different color palettes. I'm pretty sure she used some acrylic paints, not watercolor paints, but like, you see where like the inspiration's coming? I think I'm excited. I'm excited. I'm like looking at this going, nice job. Okay, so we're gonna let that dry a little bit and then I'm gonna start thinking about the rest of my layout and how that's gonna go. So I have my picture, which is good. I'm gonna just set that up here. But here's the thing that I wanted to kind of talk about. I'm just gonna wipe my fingers good before I go touching everything. Because mucky fingers get on everything. So I wanted to use this April as my title, and I think what I'll do is I'm gonna tear it to give it, like, you know, those soft, fun, torn edges. Watercolor paper has super pretty edges when you tear it up, so I think that's gonna be really nice. But you'll notice the parts of the April didn't stamp well, and the embossing powder didn't take very well. So I want to I want to like touch it up just a little bit so it's a little bit easier to read. So I have a white marker here, so we're just gonna cheat a little. We're gonna use my white marker to cheat on it. And honestly, when I do my journaling on this, I'm gonna be white markering it anyways. So is it cheating? No, it's just making it the way I want it to be. Okay, when I white marker, I always have to, like, oh, I could do that on here. I always need to like make sure that the pen is flowing a little bit first, right? You want to make sure that it's working, because otherwise you're going to be writing and you're going to be like pressing into your surface. But this one is nice and dry because I did this the other day. So yeah, just going to add a little bit of white right over top of my areas where it's just not very opaque. And so it's gonna slide right down into the background, like in between, because this is a gel pen, right? They're like kind of liquidy, and it's gonna make this pop just a little bit better. And Vicky says, it's awesome. I'm gonna have to play this back in slow motion so I can cheat. Thank you. Well, it's gonna dry. It's maybe not gonna be as black. We'll see. I can already see it's looking pretty light. It's amazing how like that black is not as black. Maybe it's my ink, or maybe it was my application method, but you definitely get those layers of the color, and that is like so exciting to me. So this is fun, just get my little letters in here and bring the opacity up a little because it's a little hard to read a few of these letters. And so even when we have things that didn't work perfect, like, you know, this definitely isn't perfect, but at the end here, are you gonna notice? No, it's gonna be beautiful. And would I have had to do this? No, but I think that it's gonna be just a little bit more pop, right? Like you could read it, but not that nicely. So. And I'm just like pressing fairly lightly, trying to make sure that my ink stays flowing, but also, you know, I don't want to like knock the little bits of the embossing powder that did stick, like the little bits of the plastic or whatever. I don't want to pull them off, right? I'm not trying to chip them off. And so that just makes it pop just a little bit better. I'll hold it up to the screen so you can see it better. And it'll dry in a sec. But have a look there. See? It looks just a little bit better, right? It's just a little brighter. So, yeah. Thank you, Ria. She says that really pops. So, this is drying. You can see the little bright areas. Those are actually the sparkles that you're actually seeing, the little condensed areas of sparkle in those pens, like in these Jane Davenport mermaid markers. They are the Shimmering Sky collection. That was this collection that I had used. And I think they're super pretty. So, can you see how it's actually not as dark under the light as it dries here? It's not quite as dark. It's not as black as it could be. It could be more black. I would be okay with that. But I think we're gonna be letting that be. If it turns out too gray, thoughts? Thoughts? Suggestions? I'm open to ideas. I want to make it like have that punchy black to it, but I don't know if it's gonna have enough of it. But it's gonna be beautiful. Okay, so now I said I was gonna tear this. I'm a little worried about my fingers here. Let's be real. Well, that's ink on them. But now I'm gonna tear this. So my goal is to tear this so that there's a nice teared edge all the way around this, and I'm gonna kind of try to stick close-ish around this with a little white around the edge. Now, when you tear, there are two ways to tear. Stonehenge makes colored aqua cold press paper. She has some black, so she's going to experiment with that. So that could be super fun. So when you tear, there's two ways to tear. When you're tearing and you tear one way, you get the rough edge, right? Your rough torn edge like this. But if you're tearing like the other way, then you get the rough torn edge on the opposite side. I want my rough torn edge to be, so I can just show you the difference here. So flat, smooth part, rough torn edge. I like that rough torn edge effect. And so I'm going to be tearing it towards me as I go around it. And watercolor paper is super nice to tear. Like seriously, if you've ever like been like, I love to tear paper, this stuff's the stuff. So nice. Okay. So I'm gonna tear it, and you can see like I'm doing smallish areas, but I'm still not getting that really horrible you know when you tear paper and it's like whoop, that doesn't look good sometimes. Ooh, so Karen says if you use water along the edge where you're gonna tear, you'll get a nice decollage. So I'm gonna go right along here and tear and tear. This is gonna look like so lovely. And this is the hardest little part right here. Okay. Oh, isn't that pretty? So that's going to be lovely. That's going to be like the prettiest title ever. I'm not setting it down yet because, you know, this is still wet. But that's going to be the prettiest thing ever. Okay. This paper right now is drying pretty flat. I'm quite happy to see what's happening here. It is drying pretty flat at this current time. So that's giving me good vibes. I think because it got so wet, it's not like even buckling, but also because it's good water paper, right? Watercolor paper. So there we go. Now I want to try that thing that Karen just talked about. So we're going to take a second to do that while we're waiting for that to continue to dry. I have this little scrap here. So I'm going to do what she just said and take a little bit of water. And I'm going to run it along here. I'm assuming I got to give it a second to kind of like, you know, soak in. So I'll give it a sec there. Chrissy says, I still can't believe all that color is peeking out from the black. So we did a black base, and then we added the color, and then we added more black over top. And these are my Kiritaki, Tambai, Gansey, whatever it's called, yeah, colors. And they're pretty nice. So here's what they're called. Kiritaki, Gansai, Tambi. There. I don't know why I'm always like weird about saying that name. But. Okay, so this soaked in a little bit. And she says if you tear it there, you'll get a nice decal edge. So it's definitely like wanting to go where the paper is. Maybe it made it easier. I'm not noticing a big difference in the edging of it, but it might have made it easier to kind of stick to where I wanted to tear it. So, good note. Danielle says, right? It's amazing. Yeah, I'm just having so much fun with this. Okay, so I have those flowers that I made. Oh, these little blooms in here. Ooh, they're looking so nice. I have to hold this up so you can see. So to see the little blooms in those drops where they're splashing onto that wet background, you get a really different effect when you put like wet onto wet versus wet onto dry. Like the dry will just more soak into one spot, and then the wet's gonna like bloom and mix with the other stuff, right? And whew, so cool. So cool. Okay. We're gonna let this, it's getting like, I could definitely feel it is getting dry. If I had a drying rack, it would probably get dry a lot faster because I can tell that the bottom is still quite wet compared to the top. But, you know, I don't have my cookie drying rack. My donut drying rack. We made donuts last night. Okay, I'm going to show you really, really quick. We made donuts. It was awesome. And I'm just excited because we've never made donuts before. Because we couldn't really fry things before. But here we are making donuts. Can I? Oh, I don't have this hooked up. How can I show you best? Here we go. This one's the best. Here we are making donuts. I'm using a glass because I don't have a donut cutter. Are there other pens where you can make the drops with? Absolutely. We'll talk about that in a second. I'm having a great time. My husband is trying to direct me as a photographer, so, you know, that's kind of a disaster. Here I am cutting the centers out of the donuts. And this is what I was using to cut my centers because we couldn't find something else. It is literally one of these little embellishment cases. The little 1-inch embellishment cases were the perfect way to make a donut center. And that's why I had to show you my donut experience here today. So we cut them all out and fried them up. They were delicious. And that was my finished product. Don't they look perfect? We made the glaze and everything. Oh my gosh. So donuts. Coming to a page near you. Coming to a page soon. So Rhea asked a great question. She said, are there other pens where you can make the drops with? So yeah, these ones here, these Jane Davenport ones are, they're just watercolor in the pen, right? It's like liquid watercolor in the pen. So those, and these ones have the shimmer. Jane also has a set that doesn't have the shimmer to them. Vicki Booten has a set that doesn't have the shimmer to them with like, it's a bigger set with like maybe a dozen colors, I think. So in addition to these, you could use something like that. But if you wanted to drop the color on and you don't care about the shimmer, you could literally just take your paintbrush and pull some of the color from one of these little areas and use that to drop your color on. So and you could splat it so that you get the little splatters, or you can do like little tiny dots. And I'm going to show you. Oh, so you see this part, you can see where it's a little more wet there. But I don't think my husband has any luck directing me at anything. He wasn't getting much luck either. So if you don't have the watercolor pens and you have watercolor, you can kind of recreate that same thing, right? And if you wanted to have shimmer and stuff, yeah, you can still, like what other ways? Ooh, I had this shimmer paint before. So Close to My Heart used to have this shimmer paint, and it was just a super, it's like fairly translucent, not completely translucent. What is that? It's not transparent. Translucent is the one, right? Between opaque and transparent, translucent. But it had like super fine shimmer inside of it. Almost like similar to the kind of fineness that you actually see in these shimmer pens. and it was right in this paint, and we had little vials where you could mix your own ink refillers, so that the refill inks, you could mix them in with a little bit of that shimmer paint with a little bit of water, shake them up in the little things, and then you could use them like a shimmer mist. So like is it glimmer spray? Shimmer spray? Glimmer spray? Somebody correct me. You'll know what I'm talking about. I'm like, I have jars, I have bottles of it. The lid's always like gummed up. So if you had those and you always had the issues with the lids coming up, when you have one that works, use it and then take your lid off, clean it out with fresh water so that it sprays fresh water through your little sprayer, put your sprayer back on and close it up. Because using that fresh water through it, you're going to waste a little bit whatever's in the actual tube. But honestly, it's totally your best friend, because then next time you pick up that little spray, it actually works. Okay, so this is looking good. Ooh, I like those little colors that I added, so that was really fun. I'm going to add a couple more with more of that pinky magenta color that I have on my flowers too. So I'm going to add a couple of those little tiny little dots, and just to kind of give me like a couple little tiny little spots there, and maybe here. Ooh, some of them got bigger, but I think that's gonna be cool. And oh, I went into my clean water. Yep, it happens every time. See, I've got this was my clean water till right now, and then I've got my dirty water. Happens every time. And then I'm gonna do a little bit with this yellow. And just have a couple little tiny yellow dots as well. Okay. Rinsing water, cleaning water, sorta. Sorta. Okay. So that's good. I think it's like, it's not dry yet, but it's getting close. And of course I've added a couple more little daubs of stuff to it, but it's not a big deal. So we can start looking at the layout and how we're going to set it out, right? That's the next fun thing to do. Okay, and I have all these little flowers. Let's grab those flowers back, and we'll come up with a way to set my flowers out that I think will look lovely. Tattered Angels Glimmer Mist. She says, I have lots still. Yes, and I think that those are super beautiful. The little stuff in them would sometimes block up those little spray things, but they were one of my favorite products ever that I had in my scrap stash, honestly. But keeping those nozzles clear, that was the challenge. Okay, I'm just going to grab another piece of paper that I have here, because we're just going to lay this down so I can kind of design a little bit of a cluster of these flowers. Like on the white, they're pretty, but against this background, aren't they going to be beautiful? Oh my gosh, they're going to be beautiful. So I wanted to create a little bit of a, kind of like a little cluster, a little nest for my nest. You see what I did there for my little chicken picture? So I want to create this area. I'm going to actually, let's do it on this paper, because then I can build it in the right size while I'm waiting for that one to dry. It's like I planned it or something. So we have this that will sit probably about here. And then I'm going to have my flowers mostly to this side, I think. And then I'll have my April word up here. And then I'll have some journaling. And I think I'd like to put like a couple of those word what do you call them? Like the word stickers, the little bars kind of thing. I'm so bad with words today. It's like, who? It's just, Karen, I have several of those too. I just noticed them on one of my shelves the other day. Out of sight, out of mind. I made the flowers and they are beautiful. I made those myself. I made one during our yesterday. I made one yesterday. I think maybe this one was one I made yesterday. And then I've decorated it with some Nuvo drops. And yeah, it's done with watercolor, white embossing powder, watercolor, and then I've added just a couple little bits of Nuvo drop to add extra embellishment to it. But I think they turned out pretty beautiful. And I'm not going to need, I think I have a lot of leaf stuff and a lot of action because I tried to make the flowers with watercolors easy to make them look different. Word strip. That was what I was looking for. I think I'd like to have some kind of word strip or something here. But I've got like a couple different flower styles. But I think having all of the leaves might be a little distracting. So I might cut some of the leaves out. And I'm just trying to see, kind of creating like a little bit of a cluster of these. What do I want them to look like? I think, kind of like the 3 around and then have like a little accent and another little accent. I wish this one was leaning the other way. I kind of could move this, right? And like fake it a little if I take this off and turn it. Right? I'm the boss. I'm going to try that. When I said I like to play. All right, and this one here, I think I'm going to pull off these little side leaves, which will give me other pieces to play with as well. But I think they're just distracting from the overall effect. And I think I've got too many of these little buds in here, so I'm going to definitely cut some of those out. Because they're my flowers, I can be the boss of them. Just so you know, you get to be the boss of your supplies and make them look and act in the way that makes sense for your projects. Okay. Good. This will sit there. I've got this one. I'm going to try to do a little bit of manipulation on this. By turning this around, I can make this flower go the other way. Now, obviously the leaf is going the wrong way, so I can pull that leaf off and then use one of these other leaves that are going the right way, or just kind of turn the leaf on it. Yeah, that'll totally work. So then, this is going to be fine. So this is the layout that I am creating right now. It's going to be on this background, which is still not dry enough to work on. Let's be real. It's just not quite dry enough yet. But that's the background. This is going to be the design of the layout. And I think it's going to be beautiful. Oh, see, I can put one of those little guys right down in there. So I'll make the little floral cluster with my flower. I'll have room for journaling, and I'm going to find some word strips to stick on there. So that is the plan for this layout, bringing all of these different embellishments that we worked on all this week together. And I'm pretty excited to connect the pieces, right? The watercolor, the resist, the embossing, the Nuvo drops, the fun, playful backgrounds. I think all of the pieces come together so nicely to make a single cohesive layout, and I'm really excited to kind of see that. Thank you so much for joining me today. It is so much fun to play and to scrapbook and just kind of test our creativity and try new things that we might not have done. Like playing with this paper was so much fun. If you're not following me on Instagram, this is my Instagram. It's at Alice Bowl. And if you're doing a little bit of shopping on scrapbook.com, that's my affiliate link. So thank you so much if you choose to use it. I also have my email going out. I kind of reminded you in the beginning, but I have emails going out generally once a week. Sometimes I forget, but generally once a week, and that tells you some of the fun stuff that we have going on. I will be back every weekday this month, not weekends, but weekdays, pretty much at the same time at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern, to do more creative chats. We have some new topics next week, which will include this folio. We're going to build one of the photo play folios. This is the folio number 2. I'm going to put this together. We're going to talk about how we can use some of the ideas that go into creating these folios in our own scrapbooking as well, because having interaction and fun things is, I think it makes our scrapbooking more fun. So thank you so much. Thank you. Your paper looks lovely. It's going to be beautiful. It has that little bit of chicken wire in it. It has some of the fun colors. I'm so excited. It's going to be lovely. But thank you so much, everyone, for joining me today. I'll be back next Monday for some more Happy at Home. Hopefully this makes your day at home a little happier too. Talk to you soon. Bye.